industry, no commercial industries. You don't see a street like Jimmy Carter Boulevard with buildings and fast food places and convenience stores. You just don't see it. I didn't even see a gas station when I was over there. And their best roads out of the city of Moscow, their highways, major highways, single lane, like your county roads here, bumpy, wavy, potholed, no shoulder, just drop off. And it's just, I could go on forever on that one.
Commies, as sometimes you put it when you're preaching to the crowd, are another one of your big topics. You've already mentioned your solution for queers. Mm-hmm. What's your solution for commies?
Well, here's the true separation of church and state. It's my job to try to save the queers and commies. It's President Reagan's job to kill the queers and enforce the protection of the United States and defense and protect us from any invasion of the Communist Party or Soviet Union. That would mean in the entire Western Hemisphere. And also any acts of aggression throughout the entire world, like in Afghanistan or South Africa.
Any questions from the floor?
I have a question. What was the best college campus you've been?
Right, I forgot about that.
Our ratings.
You've mentioned that a couple of the worst campuses you've been to are Valdosta and Georgia Southern. What is the absolute worst college campus you've been on and why?
Okay, the absolute worst is the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Now, they have about every special interest group and radical group you could think of in the entire country. And if you would read the House Committee on Un-American Activities and also J. Edgar Hoover's writings, you'd find out that these communist front groups sent groups to Columbia University in New York, University of Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, and Berkeley, California, and University of Florida, Gainesville as their big target. And they're trying to rouse up all this activity. Well, it seems like they've all gone from these other campuses up to Wisconsin. And that's where they have just hung out together. And, you know, you got your feminists up there, your lesbians, your homos, blatant. You know, they take their clothes off and run around nude, and girls take their clothes off and run around nude too, and they kiss and make out. The lesbians and homos do right out in front of everybody. And that's the worst campus.
So it's now what is the best campus you've been on?
My favorite is Purdue.
Why is that?
Well, the tech students here might not like that since they're rivals in technology. Why is that? Because they have a great place to preach. It's called the Mall. It's a flat grass area. It's about, I guess, about 100 yards, about a football field size. And they sit down, and they'll sit down there all day long in the sun. And when they sit down, they're not so emotional. When they're standing up, they get kind of rowdy. And so they sit down, they'll think with you, they'll ask you questions, they'll answer your questions, and they're relevant. They're not really off the wall, perverted. There's no punk rockers up there that I know of at this time. And the homosexuals are like around here at Tech. They're not so flagrant and out in the open. They're behind the closet. And also, just the atmosphere and the student body there. Then it would be Stanford would be my second. Then I guess Georgia Tech here, then the University of Virginia. So Tech here is my top 5.
It's pretty good. You mentioned homosexuals at Georgia Tech as if they were in a class by themselves.
Oh yeah, they're abnormal. God made them Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Okay, but I was thinking more along the lines of, is there a normal queer and an abnormal?
No, they're all abnormal. Or either XX or XY, not both.
Georgia Tech's on your top 5 list of good schools. Still, how would you describe it overall?
Well, many have said that there's a conservative swing or trend in the universities. Well, now, I don't know what they're comparing it to. If they're comparing it to the 60s, I guess any university is conservative nowadays. But I noticed that the students have got haircuts. That's about it. And they dress a little bit better because they realize that the hippies of the 60s, the plight of the hippies was degeneration, ghetto dwelling, gutter dwelling, no jobs, just constant arrest, nowhere. Drugs, VD, hepatitis, abortions, everything. So they didn't want that. The students don't want that these days. They want a job. They want to be IBM executive, Coca-Cola executive, and so forth. And so they cut their hair and are more decently presentable on the outside. But many of them are still quite liberal and selfish on the inside. So what I'm saying, they're being more conservative outwardly for selfish gains. This way they can get a good position, a good job starting out of college, which is a start. At Kent State University, I was there a year ago last November. A lot of punk rockers hang out there from the school's known for its rebellion. And the chief of police, who likes me quite a bit, he took me aside after a week of preaching on Friday and said, "Brother Jim, let me walk you to the car." So we walked out to the car and he talked and he said, "Brother Jim, I've been here for 17 years. I've seen everything there is to see on a college campus. I've seen riots, mobs, tear gas, shootings, killings, panty raids, the lighter stuff. I've seen all of it." And he said, "But there's a new thing these days, these punk rockers." He said, "I don't like the punk rockers. I don't know how to approach the punk rockers. I'm scared to approach them. They're the most belligerent, malicious, ignorant group of people I ever did see." He said, "At least in the 60s, the hippies, you could sit down and reason with them, and they were somewhat rational. But these punk rockers are just beside themselves. If they know something is right, they'll do just the opposite." He said, "But here, you had all week long, 5 days a week, 30 punk rockers sitting at your feet listening to you preach. And you were controlling them." He said, "How do you do it?" And now I took that as a great compliment. Here's a man well-educated in crowd control and crowd behavior and his job and so forth, and he's seen a lot more than I've seen, asking me for my advice on how to handle punk rockers. Well, I gave him, first of all, it's a spiritual thing. I go out there, the Spirit of God, and it controls the spirit of the devil that's inside these punk rockers. Secondly, the punk rockers respect me. They know I'm sincere. They know I'm not out there just for my own gain or glory. And so they respect my boldness of getting out there and saying what I'm saying. And they just sit down and listen to me. And when they try to get me upset and give me their best shot, I don't retaliate or get mad at them. I usually say, "I still love you, you miserable wretch." And they'll back down.
You said they respect you because you're sincere.
Yeah.
And
my boldness.
Are there a lot of people that think you aren't sincere, that you're just up there to entertain?
Well, there's been this prevailing question that Brother Jim's out there. He's just a psychology major out there writing a book on crowd control and behavior. And so that's usually the biggest qualm people have, but usually they know I'm pretty sincere once they realize I'm not out there and getting mad and stuff.
When does your material run out? We have the footage from last year, and it is the same material, and I'm not saying that it's going to be old ever. Mm-hmm. But do you ever revise what you say? Do you ever come up with new material?
Oh yeah, we get new things all the time, and Jed and Cindy and Max and a few others will get together and we'll trade new things and new anecdotes and one-liners and new stories and sermons and stuff. I guess you could say I got my favorites to preach. And I revised the AIDS thing, which is always being revised these days, and revised a few other things.
What are your favorites?
Well, the Brother Jim story would be number one, I guess. And then number two would be the law of compound probability, showing that the actual probability of Jesus ever existing on earth was zero, because no one had ever been born of a virgin before. And so when that prophecy was given, there was no probability it would ever come to pass. And when you multiply that with all the other prophecies, it come out zero. And so I like that. I like getting on the theory of evolution I like getting on why people smoke dope and drink booze.
Why do they?
Well, because they're looking for a better state of mind and a better piece of happiness. And proving to themselves that their normal, natural state of mind is not content and peaceful in the first place, so they would need to seek for a better one. And so we Christians don't need drugs or booze because we already have perfect peace of mind. We're already content in our happiness because Jesus gives it to us. And a few other favorites. I like getting on the Romans chapter 1, the 24 characteristics of a queer. I didn't preach that this year.
No. What are they?
Well, they're a pretty long list. You want all of them?
If you could
I can give you a
condense
few.
it.
Well, the first three is all unrighteousness, wickedness, and fornication. So there's three strikes against all fornicators. They're both unrighteous and wicked, and they're fornicators. So there's three characteristics of a homosexual. Now you might be wondering now, how is fornication, heterosexuality, a characteristic of a queer? Well, first of all, if you're a horny little devil or a lusty hussy, pretty soon fornication won't satisfy you. You'll have to experiment, and you'll be like Mick Jagger, I can't get no satisfaction. So you go out and experiment with homosexuality. Pretty soon that won't satisfy you. You go into bestiality. And then S&M and all kinds of kinky, perverted stuff. And so it'll be fornication, lasciviousness, murder. Now, they say murder. Every homosexual is a murderer. They say, well, how's that? Jesus said, if you hate your neighbor, you're a murderer. They say, oh, they don't hate each other. They love each other. I said, no. You don't understand anal intercourse. Homosexuals hate each other. That's why they keep on pounding each other. And so there's murder, there's debate, very quarrelsome, contentious, maliciousness, very hateful in their intentions. They're covenant breakers. The average queer in America has 50 lovers in a lifetime. But in the Bay Area, it's about 1,000 lovers a year that are dark houses. And deceit, haters of God. You know what? There's actually churches or denominations. The United Methodist Church, for one, and I believe now the Presbyterians, they actually ordain homosexual ministers. And that is a disgrace in the eyes of God.
So they're hypocrites?
Oh, big hypocrites, yeah. You cannot be a homo and a Christian at the same time. I like preaching on the, I didn't preach it this year, the 5 dormies out of Brother Jed's book. It's in the story. I didn't preach out of Proverbs 7 about the teak boy and the tried-out girl. It's in Proverbs 7 about a boy and a girl. I did preach on my number line, the number line to hell and then number line to heaven.
So a number of the anecdotes, the stories that you have, are actually retold stories out of the Bible, but told in more modern terms,
Right.
a teak boy and a tried-out girl.
Right.
Do you change the spiel any for the individual campuses? For example, we don't have a tri-delt here.
Right. So I would use Zeta.
You say this. Notice at the Teak House you gave a rundown of the worst fraternities and the worst sororities. What are they again?
Well, the worst fraternity in the entire country are the Teaks, because they have the largest membership and the most money, so they have the most income for drug, sex, booze, and rock and roll parties. Same with the tri-delts. But here would be Zetas, number 2.
And the next worst fraternity?
Next worst fraternity would be the Lambda Chi's, and then, possibly the Pikes or the KAs or SIGEPs, the DUs.
And the sororities?
Oh, I don't know all that many sororities, I'm sure. The best ones I know is just Zetas and the tri-delts.
What do you count as the best fraternities and sororities?
I don't.
You don't. You don't count any of them as good? Why not?
Well, their havens and hideouts are drunkards, masturbators, fornicators, rock and roll freaks, and wild parties, beer